Guys, what is going on? Welcome back to Mets Central. This is Mets fan reaction game 107 as the New York Mets defeat the Minnesota Twins tonight by a score of 2-0 as they take the first two games of this three-game set against the Minnesota Twins. And unlike last night where we just got an offensive explosion from the team per se, obviously if you watched last night's post-game recap, they put up 15 runs. Wasn't an offensive explosion tonight. However, what was very similar to last night's game was the Mets got very effective pitching, especially on the starting front. We've complained a lot this season about two pitchers specifically, Jose Quintana and Sean Manaea, and how they wouldn't give the Mets a lot of length when they start. Sometimes they go 5 innings, sometimes less. Occasionally they do give you the sixth inning start, but most of the time, we see them with the short start, a lot of walks. They increase their pitch count quite quickly during the games, but in these back-to-back games from yesterday and tonight, those two were just simply incredible. Obviously, we covered Jose Quintana's game on last night's game recap, but tonight I gotta give a major credit to Sean Manaea. He was excellent tonight. He had his fastball working very well tonight, especially up in the zone. The Twins hitters just had a hard time the whole night hitting it, and he had a very good command of a sweeper. Got a lot of swings and misses on that. So yeah, anytime you get seven innings from your starter, especially in today's MLB, you take that all day. And for Sean Manaea, who off his last start against the Yankees, where I think he only went 4 1/3, 4 2/3, the fact that he went 7 innings tonight, and in the last two games of this set against the Minnesota Twins, the fact that the Mets have only had to use three relievers to get through two games it's simply fantastic. But like I mentioned, not an offensive explosion type from the Mets, with only scoring 2 runs, but they did get some timely hitting from Mark Vientos and JD Martinez, as we'll get into it in the post game recap. But yeah, and all around, just a really good win. Now the Mets go into the final game tomorrow of this 3-game set. It's a 1 o'clock game tomorrow. Sevy's on the mound for the Mets, and they look to get this sweep as after this series they head out west where they have I think a 3-game set against the Los Angeles Angels. So a series which the Mets have to take advantage of and sweep the Angels, because obviously, as we've seen this year and in the standings have shown, the Angels are not a very good team. But anyway, guys, before we actually get into the game recap, make sure you guys just leave a like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support we get on this channel, and we would just want to keep feeding you guys content. So, but the more you guys like and subscribe, the more we can do that. But yeah, anyway, let's get into the game recap. Like I mentioned before, Sean Manaea was on the mound for the Mets, and David Festa was on the mound for the Minnesota Twins. Start off the game, top of the first, Manuel Margot would pop out to Jeff McNeil at second base. Manaea would then get Byron Buxton to strike out. He would then walk Royce Lewis. Nothing on that inning, though, as he would get Jose Miranda to strike out. Then moving on to the bottom of the first, Francisco Lindor would ground out to Willie Castro at second. Brandon Nimmo would pop out to Jose Miranda at third, and JD Martinez would pop out to Willie Castro at second. Then moving to the top of the second, Carlos Santana would strike out. Willie Castro would then ground out to Jeff McNeil at second, and Austin Martin would ground out to Francisco Lindor at short. Then moving on to the bottom of the second, Pete Alonso would strike out. Jesse Winker would get a single, so his second hit in 3 games for the Mets so far. Mets didn't get anything on that inning, as the very next batter, Mark Vientos, he would hit into an inning-ending double play. Then moving on to the top of the third, Christian Vasquez would pop out to Jeff McNeil at second base. Brooks Lee would then single. Manuel Margot would pop out to Jeff McNeil. Brooks Lee would steal second base. Twins wouldn't get a run that inning, though, as Manaea would get Byron Buxton to strike out. Then moving on to the bottom of the third, Jeff McNeil would ground out to Carlos Santana. Luis Torrens would line out to Austin Martin in left, and Harrison Bader would strike at the inning. So far to 3 innings, David Festa was really good, and I was a bit disappointed in the Mets because they weren't really challenging him at all. They were swinging very, very early in the count, getting quick and easy outs, and I'm pretty sure through the first 3 innings, or maybe it was through the first 4 innings, but Festa had like 28 pitches. So the Mets had to do a lot better in terms of, driving up Festa's pitch count. Then moving on to the top of the fourth, Royce Lewis would strike out. Jose Miranda would strike out. Carlos Santana would single. And then Sean Manaea would get Willie Castro to ground out to Jeff McNeil at second base. Then moving on to the bottom of the fourth, we would see the Mets strike for their first run. Francisco Lindor would strike out. Brandon Nimmo would walk. Then there was a balk. Brandon Nimmo would advance to second base, and then David Festa would throw a wild pitch. So Brandon Nimmo will get to third base, and then JD Martinez with a big time single as he would hit it into right field, and he would bring in Brandon Nimmo to score the first run of the game. So 1-0 Mets at that point. Pete Alonso would then strike out, and Jesse Winker was called out on strikes to end the inning. Then top of the fifth, Austin Martin would ground out to Mark Vientos. Christian Vasquez would then strike out, and Brooks Lee would pop out to Jeff McNeil at second base. Then leading up the inning in the bottom of the fifth, Mark Vientos, who, again, like we mentioned before, very impressive this year. He would hit a home run, his 15th of the year, to make it 2-0 Mets. Jeff McNeil was then hit by a pitch. Luis Torrens would fly out to Byron Buxton. Harrison Bader called out on strikes, and Francisco Lindor would fly out to Byron Buxton to end the inning. Top of the sixth, Manuel Margot would fly out to Harrison Bader. Byron Buxton would strike out swinging. Royce Lewis was also called on strikes as well. So Sean Manaea, like I mentioned before at the start of the video, very dominant and just was working easily through this Twins order. Then bottom of the sixth, Jorge Alcala came in to replace David Festa. He would get Brandon Nimmo to be called out on strikes. JD Martinez would then hit a double. Pete Alonso would strike out, and Jesse Winker would ground out to Jorge Alcala. Then moving on to the top of the seventh, like we saw in last night's game, Tyrone Taylor came in to replace Jesse Winker in the outfield. Jose Miranda would strike out. Carl Santana would then ground out to Francisco Lindor, and Willie Castro would strike out to end the inning. So, like I mentioned before, Sean Manaea with an impressive outing tonight, as his final line would be 7 innings, 2 hits, 0 runs, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts, obviously 0 home runs, and that would lower his ERA to a 3.05 on the season. And what really impressed me tonight about Sean Manaea is because, whenever we watch him, a lot of walks, and he drives up his pitch count a lot early in the games. And tonight he didn't do that. I mean, 1 walk for Sean Manaea is it's insane, and it's just the credit to him because he just had the whole night. He had an easy night against the Twins, and 11 Ks on top of that. Great outing by him. I gotta tip my cap to him. Just really impressive. Then moving on to the top of the eighth, Ryan Stanek. Oh, sorry, forgot. Moving on to the bottom of the seventh, got a half inning in front. Griffin Jackson would come in to replace Jorge Alcala. Mark Vientos would ground out to Jose Miranda at third. Jeff McNeil would line out to Byron Buxton in center, and then Luis Torrens would strike out to end the inning. Then top of the eighth, Ryan Stanek would come in to replace Sean Manaea, and got to admit, I was a little nervous, especially, Ryan Stanek coming off his horrible Mets debut against the Braves where he let up 2 home runs. But I got to be honest, tonight he pitched very well. And, I'm sure we will get into it. A bad play by Pete in this half inning. But Max Kepler would come in to pinch hit for Austin Martin. Max Kepler would hit a ground ball to Pete Alonso, and this play pissed me off with Pete because Pete Alonso, he feels the ground ball. You figure it's going to be a nice, easy play. He either, runs to the base or with a nice little toss over to Ryan Stanek for the first out. He really, for me at least, he should have just took the ball himself. There was no reason to just throw over. Just take the ball yourself. You fielded it nicely. Just take the ball to first base yourself. But he tries some stupid nonchalant play. He throws it he tried to throw it to Ryan Stanek, and instead of even throwing it to his glove hand side, he throws it to Ryan Stanek's bare hand side. So Max Kepler gets on base with an error. Then Christian Vasquez would come up. Stanek would get him to fly out to Tyrone Taylor. Then Brooks Lee would walk. So first and second, Ryan Stanek had to bulk down. He did. Trevor Larnach would come in to pinch hit for Manuel Margot. He would get Larnach to fly to Harrison Bader, and with 2 outs and Byron Buxton coming up to the plate, Carlos Mendoza makes the pitching change, and Edwin Diaz comes in to replace Ryan Stanek. And it would get to a 3-2 count, but Edwin Diaz, with a very nice slider that he threw, he got Byron Buxton to strike out. Then moving on to the bottom of the eighth, Caleb Thielbar came in to replace Griffin Jackson on the mound for the Twins. Harrison Bader flew out to Max Kepler in right. Francisco Lindor grounded out to Brooks Lee at short. Brandon Nimmo hit a single. He would then steal second. Mets couldn't score a run in this inning, though, as JD Martinez would strike at the end of the inning. So now moving on to the top of the ninth. Like I mentioned before, Edwin Diaz came in the last inning to get the last out on Byron Buxton. So he's coming in for the 4-out save. He would get Royce Lewis to strike out. He would then get Jose Miranda to ground out to Jeff McNeil second. And to end the game, he would get Carl Santana to line out sharply to Harrison Bader in center field. So, like I mentioned before, all around very good game for the Mets. While, like I mentioned before, while they didn't get the offensive explosion as they did in last night's game where they put up 15 runs, you put up 2 runs. You got some timely hitting from JD Martinez and Mark Vientos. So you take that all day. And like I mentioned before, what really impressed me was the pitching tonight. You get 7 innings from Sean Manaea. Limited the walks to only 1, 11 Ks. You take that. Stanek came in. He pitched well. Obviously, the error wasn't his fault. That's on Pete all day, but he pitched very well. A nice bounce back outing from him after that poor outing that he had against the Braves. And then Diaz comes in, his first 4-out save this year, and yeah, that brings his save counter up to 13. So yeah, a very good overall team win. But now, like I mentioned before, the Mets go into this final game against the Twins tomorrow, 110 game. Luis Severino's on the mound tomorrow, and Pablo Lopez is on the mound for the Minnesota Twins. So let's see if the Mets get the sweep tomorrow. I'll be in the building tomorrow, so the post-game recap will be out a little bit later. But yeah, just a really good win. Let's go Mets, baby. Hope you guys enjoyed the game recap.